Have you ever heard people say you should invest in shares, but you're sitting there thinking, I don't even know what a share is or how it works? If that's you, please be assured you are not alone. For many, in fact, for most Australians, shares feel a little bit complicated, a little bit risky, and perhaps even a little bit like gambling. But the truth is, a share is actually a very simple concept and a great way to get your money working for you. So when you understand what a share is, how shares make you money suddenly start to make a whole lot more sense. Hi there, my name is Phil McGilvray. I'm a personal finance and investment coach and former partner in one of Australia's leading stockbroking and financial planning firms. And in this video, I'm going to take you through what a share is, how shares actually work. We're going to look at what dividends are and how they work. And we're also going to look at why shares go up and down in value. So by the end of this video, you're going to be able to say, okay, I get it now. Okay, so let's start by having a look at, well, what actually is a share? Or if you're in the US, you would call it a stock. They're exactly the same thing, just different names. Now, what is it? Well, it is literally a part ownership in a company. So when you own a share in Coles, you are literally a part owner in Coles. And as a result of that, you as an owner get to benefit from any profits that Coles makes. Now, that might be that the price of the share that you own goes up in value. It could also mean that Coles actually pays you part of the earnings as what's called a dividend. This is income that comes to you in the form of a check. Coles right now has 1.34 billion shares. So if you own 1 share, 5 shares, 10 shares, even 100 shares, you still only own a very minuscule portion of Coles. But you can still walk into Coles and go, I part own this place. I part own the shopping trolleys. I part own the refrigerators. I part own the trucks that deliver the produce. I literally part own part of this company. Now, right now, 1 share in Coles is worth $20.38. So if we were to times $20.38 by 1.34 billion, you'd have a value of about $25 to $30 billion on Coles. That would be approximately what it is worth. Now, if we look at how shares actually make money, well, there are 2 ways we can make money from shares. Firstly, the share price can go up. So Coles' value or for each share could go from, say, $20.38 up to $30.38. Or the company can pay us some of the profits as what's called a dividend. This is basically an income stream that gets transferred from Coles' bank account to your bank account because you are a part owner in Coles. Okay, so let's have a look at a very simplistic example of how share prices in high quality companies goes up over time. And let's use Coles as the example. Let's just say that we've gone and bought a whole bunch of Coles shares at $20.38. And at the beginning of the year, Coles is worth $30 billion as a company. And let's say it makes a 10% profit, which equates to about $3 billion. So what that would mean is that at the end of the year, Coles' value is now actually $33 billion. I hope you can see that what this means is that your shareholding should now also have increased in value because you are a part owner in this company. And this increase in value is called capital growth. Now, there's a number of reasons why share prices would go up other than just the profit that a company is making. Now, we've got the first one, which we talked about. It sells more, Coles sells more and makes more profit. That would push the price of the share up. If investors believe that the company is worth more because it has a strong future, they might be willing to pay more for Coles shares. If it has a valuable new technology or it's taken on a new CEO with a proven track record, all of these things could increase investor confidence, and they may be more people might want to buy those shares, which gradually pushes the price of those shares higher. What you'll notice though is that if people simply believe that the company is worth more, then as they buy more shares, that actually pushes the value of those shares higher. It isn't necessarily related to what the profit the company is making today. It's about investor confidence in the company. Now, when companies make profits, they have a couple of decisions to make. They can either hold on to all of those profits and use them to expand the business, new trucks, new stores, maybe expanded product lines, or they can take some of those profits and pay it out to shareholders as dividends. So in this example here, we've got Coles. It makes a 10% profit. That equates to $3 billion. And Coles might say, okay, well, we're going to take half of that profit and we're going to use it to expand our business. But the other half, we are going to pay to shareholders as dividends. Now, when you're invested in high quality Australian companies, many of those companies will pay to you dividends that come with what's called a franking credit. Now, a franking credit is where the company has already paid tax on the profits at their company tax rate, which means that when you receive the dividend, that dividend comes with a tax credit. And this can mean that dividends are a very, very tax effective way to receive income. So let's have a very quick look at how franking credits work. Now, please understand this is, again, a very simplistic example, but let's just say Coles has a company tax rate of 30%. This means they pay 30% tax on the profits they've created, and therefore you get a franking credit with your dividends, so a tax credit of 30%. What this will mean is if your income is below $135,000, now I've picked 135 because that is where the 30% tax bracket cuts off. This will mean your tax rate is 30% or less if you're below that. So if we look at this and we go, okay, well, let's say my tax rate is 30% and the franking credit is for 30%. This means that I pay zero tax on all of those dividends, which means you've got a pretty much tax-free income stream coming into your world. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? So let's have a look at a quick example if your income is higher than $135,000. Well, the company tax rate in Coles is still 30%. The franking credit, the tax credit, is still 30%. Let's say your income is $170,000, not $135,000. This means that your tax rate is 37%. Now, what this would mean is your tax rate is 37%. The tax credit is 30%, which means you only pay 7% on the dividends. You can see here that tax credit, even though you're in a higher tax bracket, it still saves you 30% tax, and you only have to pay 7% tax on the income you're receiving from the dividends. Now, so far, I've given you the sunshine and rainbow versions of what shares are and how they work, but we all know that shares can also go down in value and that people can lose money. So what causes a share to go down in value? Well, lots of things, really. Things like perhaps the company makes a loss, or perhaps the company's service, product, or technology starts to become irrelevant, or maybe there's more or better competition around, or perhaps we've got global uncertainty. We all know about that right now, don't we? Pandemics, wars, supply chain issues, or perhaps we just have poor leadership. All of these things could cause the share price of the company to go down in value. A really good example of this is Dick Smith Electronics, which was at one stage the biggest electronics store in Australia. During the 80s and 90s, it was the equivalent of what JB Hi-Fi is today. At one stage during 2013, it was valued at $520 million. But then sadly, just 3 years later, went bust and shareholders lost everything. So there's no such thing as certainty when it comes to investing in companies. But what we do want to make sure is that we're investing in companies that are making consistent profits. So the obvious question then is, well, why would anyone invest in shares? Well, the truth is Dick Smith is just one story. And yes, there are plenty of companies that do go bust. But when you focus on the quality, when you focus on companies that have real growth, then you will find that shares on the whole provide you with a very solid return. And we can see that over the last 30 years here, cash has returned on average 2.9%. Fixed interest has given you 5.3%. Property has given you 9.3%, but at the top of the pile here, we've got stocks have provided you with a 10.9% return per annum. Now, what this means is, and I don't know if you've ever heard of the rule of 72, but the rule of 72 is if you divide the interest rate into the number 72, or the rate of return in the number 72, it will tell you how many years will it take you to double your money. And you can see here that if we start with cash and we're earning on average 2.9%, then it's going to take us 24.8 years to double our money. If we look at fixed interest and we're getting 5.3%, it's going to take us about 13 and a half years to double our money. So 5.3 divided into 72 is 13.5. If we look at property, it's going to take us about 7.7 years to double our money. And if we look at shares at 10.9%, it will take approximately 6.5 years for us to double our money. And over the years, that compound effect of that higher return significantly grows your wealth. And here's another really good example. Now, every year, Vanguard, which is the biggest index fund manager in the world, puts out this chart that shows you what are the returns on the different asset classes over the last 30 years. And we can see here that if we'd invested $10,000 back in 1995 into cash, you would now have $33,000. If you put it into Australian bonds, you'd have about $49,000. If you'd put it into listed property, so this is property but that you buy via shares, you would have had about $99,000, so $10,099. If you'd invested that $10,000 into international shares, you'd have $109,000. And if you'd put that $10,000 into Australian shares, you would have $143,000 today. And if you invested in US shares, you would have $214,000. Now, the reason the US shares have done so well is because they are the world leader in technology, and many of their high quality companies like Apple, Google, Amazon have obviously done incredibly well over the past 30 years. So this just shows you that over time, shares do give you a much higher return than other asset classes, despite the fact they're a little bit riskier. Now, if this video has been helpful so far, can you please click the like button, because that helps this channel, my content, to reach more people. And please hit subscribe, because every week I release more practical, no fluff money videos to help you and your family thrive financially. So please click the like and subscribe. So let's finish up with a really quick summary. First, we looked at what shares are and how they work. We looked at the fact that shares can both grow in value, capital value, but they can also pay us out income. We looked at the fact that the income provided via dividends can often come with tax credits, which makes it a very tax effective way to create an income stream. We looked at the fact that shares can and do go down in value at times, so we need to be aware of that. But despite the risk, we also understand that over time, shares, high quality shares, will provide us with a much better return than most other asset classes. And just so you know, this is the first video in a series on investing in shares 101. So please stay tuned. Another reason to subscribe, because over the next few weeks, I'm going to be releasing a video on the risks of investing in shares and how do we actually mitigate those risks when we're putting together a portfolio. We're also then going to look at what ETFs are and how they work. We're going to look at shares, so investing directly in shares versus investing in ETFs, and which one's best for beginners. We're then going to look at how do we choose what to invest in. We're then going to look, well, what are the best investment platforms available in Australia? And then we're going to look, well, how do I practically invest in shares and ETFs? What are the step-by-step things that I need to do so that I don't need to be afraid of pressing the wrong button? Now, hopefully that sounds good to you. If it does, please click the subscribe so you're notified as to when these videos are released. And don't forget, if you would like a copy of my free beginner's guide to getting started investing cheat sheet, there is a link in the description below. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.